I'm Christy McDonald. Good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us for a special Flashpoint countdown to Election Day 2022. We're coming to you from our Local 4 newsroom, and we're talking today about the safety of our vote. Clerks across the state of Michigan have been under scrutiny, looking at what the process is going to be when we turn in our absentee ballots and when we go to the polls on November 8th. So today we really wanted to take kind of some of the mystery out of it and bust down some of the myths and misconceptions there are about our vote and about the safety of our vote, and making sure that we know when we get those election results, they are legitimate. I have two guests joining me here today. One right next to me, Susan Nash. She is the clerk in Livonia. Susan, I said, come on, let's talk about elections, and you brought every prop in the world.
I brought props as much as I could.
I know, that's good.
I mean, couldn't bring a tabulator down, sorry.
That's okay. But you know what? I think being able to talk about the process for people so they have an understanding of it, and also the transparency of it, so it feels like, no, we're all working on the same thing here.
We are. The transparency is extremely important to myself and every clerk. We want you to see what's happening. We want you to know. We want you to feel secure.
All right, and also joining us is Lisa Brown. She is the Oakland County Clerk. She's joining us by Zoom. I know she's got a lot of stuff going on up there in Pontiac. Lisa, can you hear me?
I can. Thank you for having me on. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, Clerk Brown.
We sure can. All right, so.
I'm happy to be here with Nash as well. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to ask both of you the same question to start off, and I'm sure it's every question that every clerk is getting around the state. How are things going less than 2 weeks before the election? And Susan, let me start with you.
Very well. 2020 was kind of a start, right? And so 2022 now, we're doing very well. We've absentee ballots in Livonia, we've issued over 23,000. And we've returned just shy of 50%, which is pretty close to being on target. It's a little slow, but not too bad. And people are engaged. We are getting, they're using the new systems of being able to apply online. So every day, multiple times throughout the day, we're emptying our inbox and we're sending out ballots that day. So we're in a good position right now.
Lisa, how are things from your vantage point in Oakland County?
Things are going well here as well. We had our public accuracy test this morning, so we tested all the equipment that we'll be using on Election Day to tabulate absentee ballots for 18 of our communities. To echo what Clerk Nash said, I think we're seeing a little bit of a slow return on the absentee ballots, and hoping that more people return them. I'll say today, and if you haven't returned your absentee ballot, please take it to your city or township clerk's office as soon as you can. There's a lot of steps that our local clerks do once they receive an absentee ballot. The time to do.
All right, earlier this week, our reporter Grant Herms did a really great report on what happens to your ballot once you put it in the tabulator that day on Election Day, and what happens from there, and the safety and security process. So I want to go ahead and show you that right now, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
There's been a lot of confusion, and it's not surprising to see why. For so long, so many of us never thought what happened after we cast our votes. But we looked this year. What we found was a system of double and triple checking the count and then double checking all of that. But what it really comes down to is the paper ballot.
In Michigan, there are 1,600 clerks running elections in 83 counties, all at once. That means millions of votes cast and counted. But it all starts with a single ballot.
Clerks are really a belt and suspender kind of peoples. We have backups to backups.
Adam Witt is the clerk for Harrison Township and has been for 10 years. He's also the president of the Michigan Association of Municipal Clerks, an expert in elections and the ballots he gives out.
When you get your ballot, it has a number on the top, so that way everyone is a unique number for each precinct. So we know that we were only giving out one ballot number 1 or one ballot number 2. So there's no, can't bring in your own ballots. We're the only ones that have them.
And this is when the work starts. Once the ballot is filled out, it goes to machines like these, called tabulators. They read votes just like a Scantron test in school, and can even take pictures to make sure write-in candidates are counted. And that process is done over and over and over and over until the end of the night, when the polls close and it's time to get to work. First, the box inside is unlocked, making sure the seal on the tabulator stick is unbroken. The stick is a flash drive with a tamper-evident seal. That has to be intact and match their records to the machine. Then they hit print. The machine spitting out what amounts to an election receipt, time and date, 3 times. One for the county board of canvassers, one for a county judge, and one for the local clerk. And it all gets triple checked.
If we've had 100 voters, we'll know that there's going to be 100 ballots that have ran through a machine. The tabulator will tell us 100. Our poll book tells us 100. So we're tying all these numbers together to make sure that the count's valid.
After that, it's the ballot count, matching the number of ballots in the locked box inside the tabulator to the number of voters they counted that day, to the number in the poll book, to the number on the tape. Each step signed off on by a Republican and a Democrat. The ballots are then stored, again under lock and seal in a box or bag, and that flash drive is in its own tamper-evident sealed pouch, and it's taken here to the county clerk's office, like Anthony Ferlini's in Macomb County.
So it's driven down here. We get these, we put them into our secured server, which is not on the internet. That is then all the numbers, whatnot, are put into our software, and the reports are put up live, and then the media gets their numbers late at night.
Macomb County wouldn't show us the server itself for voter security reasons, but once those are up, the county verifies those votes and sends the stick back to the local clerk with a matching seal. The unofficial results go up and the canvassing or review process starts all over for the next few weeks until the election is signed off on by the county and eventually the state. All designed as fail-safes to make sure nothing got missed and everything got counted.
Now, this whole process, a little boring and more than a little labor-intensive, is under serious scrutiny this election season. But the clerks we talk to don't see that as an inconvenience, but as a way to explain election protection.
I think we have a responsibility to do our job with that hanging over us. I think we have a responsibility to be transparent.
It's a lack of information for people, so as clerks, it's our job to be able to get out to people and spread true information and be trusted resources for people. So we were looking as an opportunity to share.
Now, absentee ballots work just a little bit differently. There's a signature on the outside, so voters are who they say they are. There's a tear-off tab on the inside with an individual number that they track alongside that on top of everything else. Now, there have been some calls to hang on to those AV ballots until Election Day. You might not want to do that. Ballots like that cannot be turned in at polling places on Election Day. You certainly don't want to mail them. They won't make it there by the 8 p.m. deadline. If you do want to hang on to your absentee ballot until Election Day, you can drop it off at your clerk's office before polls close, but your clerk's office likely not your polling place. In Detroit, Grant Herms, Local 4.
Really great report by Grant, really just taking a look at the step-by-step process that's so familiar to you, Susan,
Yes.
but for everyone else at home, maybe don't totally understand the nuance. Let me ask you about how you make of the role of clerks now that has, I think, changed in the last couple of years.
It has drastically changed. It has, we are under scrutiny, and that's okay. People should ask. There's no such thing as a dumb question, right? And people should ask, and they should want to know. And I, for one, have no problem with it, and every clerk I know has no problem with it. So I want people to feel comfortable. We want people to feel confident when they vote. And so that's why we do the steps that we do.
Is there anything in Livonia that they can come into you and say, hey, I've got a question about this, or what's the access?
I am available at all times. People contact me and I will talk to them. I will have people come into the office. I will show them what I can. I mean, obviously, as you saw in that piece, there's some things we can't. We're not going to show someone a computer that they shouldn't have access
Or something
to.
how to dismantle
Yes.
something. I
Yes,
get it,
exactly. But I will show people, or I will let them stand outside a room and look inside and see. I have cameras on every door. I have locks on every door. And so we'll let people see that. And most people leave feeling more confident.
Lisa, what do you make about the changing role of clerks and more about coming out and saying, look, this is what we do, this is what we have always done, but these are the processes and the steps now that everyone seems to be very interested in?
You know, it's interesting. When I'm asked the question, has your job changed? Not so much the tasks, right? We still have the same job duties, but it's the attitude. And I think the one thing that has changed is really being more proactive about voter education, so that if somebody sees something, they understand what they're seeing and not jumping to conclusions. For instance, some of our communities don't have absentee voting counting boards. So their absentee ballots are tabulated in the precinct. Well, if you see two people walk in with a container full of ballots, you don't know who they are, where they've come from, and you see that they're stuffing the ballot box, you were going to jump to a conclusion maybe that there's something nefarious going on. But if you know that these are people from the clerk's office, that they are workers, that they have absentee ballots that are supposed to be tabulated in the precinct, you know, now you know. So I think the one task that I've now taken on more heavily than I have in the past is really voter education about our democratic process and all the checks and balances that we have in place in Michigan.
Yeah, you know, and I want to get to the misinformation out there, and I think sometimes the danger of video, because we see it even in certain campaign ads that are out there right now saying, look, these ballots were in a trash bag, or look, this came over here, this seems not right, and the power of those images that can go viral when, exactly, Lisa, you're talking about the context, that there's something completely right with what was going on.
Right, yes. Yeah, and so just like Susan asked, right? Ask an election administrator, ask a professional who does this and who's been doing this for years. There's so many people out there who are talking about elections, but they don't work in elections. They don't know elections. And, you know, Michigan's laws are different than other states' laws, right? The way even how our elections are administrated are different than 46 other states. 46 other states.
Okay,
we're decentralized, and our
There
city
you
and
are.
township clerks. Oh, sorry. Our city and township clerks have a very important role in what we do as well. So just knowing that part, but there are different rules and different laws in different states. And so, yeah, ask a professional, ask an election administrator. Don't believe Facebook.
Please don't believe what your aunt has posted on Facebook from another state about how her election process works. And that's really, I mean, kind of goes to it, Susan, when you say ask about the things, or at least try to find the information that is based in what's coming from your municipality, because it does change from township to city.
Yes, it does, and it changes even from county to county. For example, in Wayne County, every jurisdiction clerk runs their own absentee ballots. In Oakland County, I believe Clerk Brown runs some for some of the smaller communities, so they go to the county. One of the biggest things that people misunderstand is you can bring your ballot back until 8 o'clock on election night to the clerk's office or a drop box. That means at 8 o'clock, those boxes have to be emptied. Those boxes then are emptied and they're brought to the local clerk's office, where they go through the same process that every other ballot had gone through, and that is checking signatures, that is putting them in order, scanning them and received. So then we are then delivering those ballots to the counting board. Well, that's where those ballots are coming from, that are coming at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night, because they were ballots that came in
not
throughout
last
the
minute,
day.
but at the deadline.
Yes.
For the clerk's
Exactly.
office.
And so it could be 10, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, depending on how many there are. I can't imagine with Detroit how many they have, and so that's why. And the other misconception is all of a sudden numbers showing up in the middle of the night, like results. In the past, we reported our numbers at the end. We would report our precinct numbers after 8 o'clock, and then we would do our absentee when we were complete. Well, yes, when you look at a county like Wayne, and if Westland comes in at 1 o'clock in the morning, boom, there's a block of numbers. If Canton comes in at 2 and Livonia comes in at 3, these are blocks of numbers. Now, I do believe Detroit this year is going to do where they're going to report some numbers from the absentee halfway at 8 o'clock or shortly after.
Okay.
That's not something I'm going to do, but I do believe that's Detroit's going to do. So mine will come in all at once, the absentee.
See, and this is what's so interesting about the process is people be like, well, how come Livonia's not coming in? I'm seeing something happen in Detroit. And again, the difference in each, in each place. I want to talk a little bit about absentee, because it's something that more and more people, and Lisa, I know you know this, are taking advantage of. But there was supposedly some help from the legislature in the last couple of months saying, well, we'll give you a couple of extra days to process absentee ballots. Explain why, and Lisa, at the county level, this does not apply to you. Explain why that it doesn't A, apply to the county level, and B, that the 2 days might not make a difference, or that many cities are not taking advantage of it. And we'll ask you from your perspective, Susan, but Lisa, let me ask you first.
Yeah, so interesting the parameters that were put into the legislation, not allowing combined AV counting boards like we have in Oakland County. So, as I said, we're tabulating for 18 of our communities, large and small. Some of our biggest communities we tabulate their absentee ballots for, including Southfield, Pontiac, Royal Oak. And then the other parameter is the population requirement in there. So municipalities that are smaller than 10,000 don't have this tool in their toolbox. We're clearly tabulating for communities that do meet that threshold, and yet that was left out of the legislation. But we looked at it, and even if it were an option for us, we would not be taking it. The steps that you can take we don't think would pay off for us. We've done a great job with our AV counting board. We'll have those results up in a timely fashion. So, and yeah, I know that there are a number of local clerks who aren't taking advantage of it, and there are that will. So, whatever works best for each clerk. Understand that they're going to have to hire workers to come in on Sunday, Monday, if that's, if they're taking advantage of the 2 days. And it's up to each individual clerk who has the option, right? So yes, we don't have the option, but many of our locals do.
Has the option, has the funding to make sure it happened. And when we say take advantage of something, it would feel like that is the best thing to do. It's an advantage to have these 2 extra days. Susan, explain why in Livonia you are not doing that, and the concern there.
The reason why we're not in Livonia
And what do
is
you have?
because I have a sample absentee ballot.
Okay.
So what this would allow is here is a sample ballot inside a secrecy sleeve.
Okay.
With a number written on the top, right? So that would have the ballot number. The law allows for us to take this, open this up, the green envelope,
Okay.
or purple, whichever one, okay,
Right.
and take this out.
That's it.
That's it.
And this would be sealed too,
That has
right?
to, yeah,
That
no,
would-
that's not sealed. No,
That's- oh, that's
but it's
open.
just
That's
like
just a
that.
sleeve.
We can confirm it up against that. Yes, this is the ballot it's supposed to have for this envelope, and that's it.
So what would the time and the cost of that be for just sliding that out of the envelope, and would that help you in any way?
I think myself and a couple other clerks figured it might save us an hour, because absentee ballots go on a production line. It's a kind of concept. You've got people working down stages. So if the first stage is checking to make sure it's the right one, and then going against a list, and then moving down to the next person, by the time it gets down to the end where it's going into a tabulator, maybe 45 minutes to an hour max, right? Okay, not even that, probably a half hour, if that. That means they're just going to keep going all day. And so you keep having ballots going down to the tabulator, going down to the scanner. So to do that much, to bring in that many people, to shut down the building, to secure it, it didn't justify for me. And for Livonia, where we do not count our absentees in City Hall, we have to go to a different city building because of space. There was no way I was going to open these at City Hall and
then
transport open
them.
ballots.
Okay.
So it did not weigh out.
It would seem, it makes a lot of sense. Lisa, let me ask you, in a perfect world here, when we talk about some kind of changes or different regulations or things that would make the count easier for you in the tabulation, or to get a result that would be quicker, what would we be looking at?
I think clerks would like it if the legislature listened to us, right? Listen to those that are in the job right now.
Susan is nodding furiously next to me right now. You might not be able to see her, but she's nodding.
I couldn't see it, but right. So she knows. We know it's challenging to have people make decisions that affect what we do without actually listening to how we do it and what we need. So, I was a legislator, I know, but I always used to call my local clerks and ask them. But I don't think we have that so much anymore. So one other thing about the pre-processing, though, is the counting of the envelopes before and after. So there's extra tasks now that those clerks that are going to pre-process have to do. So again, it's the balance of even that timing of having to count all those envelopes, writing all that down. This legislation, I know there are clerks who are happy about it. I think it could have been better so that more of us were happy about it. But we got what we got, so.
We got what we got. And I think that we can all agree, look, everyone wants our elections to be safe.
Yes.
Everyone wants the most accuracy. Everyone wants to make sure that people aren't saying, well, this wasn't handled correctly, this wasn't handled correctly. And I want to get to the point where we're talking about poll workers, poll watchers, and poll challengers. And I'm going to ask you, Susan, if you could give us a little definition one-on-one, because people are throwing those phrases
Names
around
out.
a lot.
Okay, so a poll worker in general is going to be someone that is hired by the clerk's office, okay, to work in the precinct. You're going to have your precinct chairs, your co-chairs, and then workers. Some might have EPB book, people that are running the laptops.
Yep, show me that. What are you talking
well,
about?
this is an electronic poll book. This is like a hard copy one, but you have laptops, so you have someone that is going to be running that. Those people have been through training. They've been through the clerk's training, either with the local clerk or a county clerk, depending on which county they're in. And they're being paid by the city or jurisdiction. Then there's poll watchers, and challengers. Those are brought in by the parties. So they are not affiliated with the jurisdiction clerk.
How many can be at each place? So is it one from each party, or how is it work in
Honestly,
Livonia?
the number, we've never had where I've had to worry about the number, and I don't know if Clerk Brown knows the exact number that are allowed. I know in the county board, we've never maxed out, so I don't know exactly what it is, but there is a max.
Lisa, do you know?
Yes. So the parties are automatically allowed to have challengers. They can have 2 in each precinct, but only 1 can be active. So they can, maybe.
And what does that mean? Explain that. Only one can be active.
So 2 people can be sitting there, but 1 can be the one verbally saying, I challenge this voter. I know that they moved, out of state 2 years ago, or I don't know, whatever kind of challenge they would try to make. The challenge has to have good cause. But so the parties automatically get 2 challengers per precinct. There are outside groups that have to apply to have challengers. They have to meet certain qualifications with that application, but they too can each have 2 in each precinct. So, and this election, we've received them from a number of groups, and we always do. There's certain groups that have always asked. There's some newer groups now that have also asked to have challengers.
Let me ask you this. So do they apply at the county level, or do they apply to the municipality that they want to challenge? And who's the one who says, is it you, Susan, who gives the stamp and says, yes, you can be a challenger?
We get notified from the county.
Okay, so so Lisa, it's you.
Yeah, it comes to my office, and we review it, and then we let them know if they did everything, filled out everything properly, and then we let our local clerks know.
Exactly. We get a list to say the valid entities.
The valid challengers who are going to be there. Okay, so I have been reading a lot recently in the news. The Detroit Free Press, Bridge, Michigan Magazine have been talking about the potential, and I actually spoke with Jocelyn Benson yesterday about the concern for challengers, that there are groups out there saying that challengers should be ready to be aggressive. What is your concern, Lisa, about challengers this time around and what we may see? Again, not wanting to stir up trouble by saying, could there be trouble? But I think addressing the fact that this is a very contentious election year, and as we keep going, it gets ratcheted up even higher.
Yeah, so there are powers that a challenger has, and some that they don't. So a challenger can't come in and do a blanket challenge to every single person that walks in the precinct. But it's educating our election workers on what those challengers can do. I was talking with one of my local clerks the other day, and he was going through that with his workers, election day workers, and even had a flow chart with challengers. No one should feel intimidated when they are casting their ballots. No one. And no one has the right to intimidate anybody. So we actually shared a list of election day crimes, both misdemeanors and felonies, with our local clerks and our law enforcement, just so they have that tool, right, in their pocket. to know what would be unacceptable on election day. We had a candidate, right, in the spring or summer who was telling people if they didn't like what they saw in a precinct to unplug a tabulator.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
somebody might say, just plug it back in. What's the big deal? Well, Susan and I would say that's a felony. So,
Yeah.
you know, and we want people to know that's a felony and it will be treated as such.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, we've never had any major problems. And I don't expect that we will now either. I would hope and expect that everyone acts civilly and respects this important day.
Yeah, and
And the process.
Yeah, it's respecting the
Exactly.
process. Susan, thoughts on this in terms of challengers and what you have told your poll workers and what you're looking for? this
Well,
time
we
around?
have told them through training, and then we have a chair meeting the night before. So our chairs all come in the night before the election, and we go over all the details again with them. And what we stress too is if you find yourself in a situation that you're uncomfortable, call the office. Just call us. We will work, we will come out. I will come out. I will send people out. I will help you. We do not expect them to be out there on an island alone. And something that I've stressed with others and other clerks is have meetings with your local law department. Your law department, your police department. I've had meetings with DPW. I've had meetings with fire. So we're ready if something happens. If a building goes down for some reason, power goes down, we can have a tent up and we can have backup generators up. All that, but also, security. I don't want to have a police officer in every building, but we also want to make sure everyone's secure. So you have to work with things. And so we tell our workers to call us. The other thing I do in Livonia, and because I have the ability to do, is I deputize 2 city attorneys on election day.
Okay.
So if there is an issue, I can send one of them out. In 2020, I did that, and I can tell you the city attorney, he had a very important job that day. He had to go to Redford. I ran out of I voted stickers. That was what he ended up having to go do.
People love
You
those
know?
stickers, Susan.
But-
There's so much on Twitter and Facebook with those
But here it
stickers.
was, I was preparing for all this
Yeah.
kind of thing, and that was what I ended up having him go do.
Well, that's a good night then.
Exactly.
Lisa, you were talking about the list of things that people don't realize that are felonies or are against the law to do around the election process. Susan, can I ask you, because you talked about unplugging and plugging in, something that you don't even think about. And
Machines are tested and they're sealed. And I
Okay.
brought some seals, like here's a
me
seal
see.
that would be put on a machine, okay? And there's a number on that seal.
Okay.
And the number on that seal is written into the book.
Okay.
And it's written where then the worker comes in on election day and checks to make sure that number is the one that's in here. And that it matches. So
Okay.
nothing is done. So you tamper with that, there's going to be a problem because where did that get tampered with? At the end of the night, when they seal up the ballots, they go into a bag, and then you can see we put the seal number on there. Okay,
you wanna
and then a
hand us that
Republican
ballot
and a
bag right there?
Democrat are
That's
the
the
blue
ballot
bag
bag it
right there.
goes
No, the
into?
blue one, not the white one.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the night, the ballots are going into a bag like this. Okay.
Yeah, bring it over.
Bring it over here.
Yeah, we can see that.
And then it is getting sealed up, and it's being signed by a Republican and a Democrat at the end of the night with a seal, and it's sealed properly. And this seal number is written in the
In the book.
in triplicate,
Okay.
and it better match. So if there's ever a problem where you have to have a recount or something, this seal number better match what's in the book. And so then the book gets taken apart on election night into different copies. Some stay with the local clerk, some go down to the county. And at the canvas level, when they count everything, when they go through everything, after the canvas, we get a lovely little plus minus sheet. That gives all the different things that we could have, there could be mistakes on, there could be things, and then explanations. And so I tell the workers, I'm one person. I can't be in every spot. So if you have a situation, document, because I'm the one that has to go explain this afterwards. So I need the remarks. And so you can see where we're going to have like an AV counting boards at the end here. So you've got some plus minuses, okay?
Yep.
But there's reasons for them. They're written over here, okay? Here's a -1. Someone spoiled their ballot. You've got per Mark's test ballot by accident went through. So there's a +1. You've got +1 per Remarks test ballot. There you go. That was the same one. I'm sorry. Rejected. And then you have sometimes people leave. Their ballot's rejected and they don't go get another one. There's a -1. In absentees, we get that. plus minus, whatever. It could be as simple as a husband and wife put both their ballots in one envelope. Well, we only scanned in one envelope, but we have 2 ballots now. So then we gotta justify that.
I think what you're showing, and I hope everyone is taking this in, how meticulous the process
Yes.
is, the detail, and that it has to count back to the book.
Yes.
Everything is a cross-reference to.
There is in the book where they
Right.
start with how many ballots. On a sheet, we say how many ballots are going.
Yeah.
And it better match at the end.
Yeah. So let me ask you, Susan. We're going to get Lisa back. Lisa, if you can hear me, I want you to. What are a couple things that you want people to know in these last 10 days?
There's so many things. First of all, straight party voting. Let's talk about that because people talk about that a lot. You can vote straight party and then cross over in however many races you want. And it's just simple, like an override in that. So I'm going to make up parties. So let's say there's the teddy bear party and you vote straight party teddy bear, okay? But your neighbor is running for dog catcher, and they're not in the teddy bear party, they're in a different party, but you want to vote for them. You can still fill in the bubble or the square, whatever your ballot has, for that person. It's simply an override for that race. But let's remember, if you vote straight party, that does not cover the nonpartisan section of the ballot. So we're talking about judicial races. In Oakland County, we have the Oakland Community College Board, and then of course the ballot proposals. So that's first and foremost. If you haven't returned your absentee ballot, please return it as soon as you can. Again, it is a process for our local clerks to process them once they return them, checking the signature and checking them in and everything. And yeah, filling your ballot and that I suggest that people view a sample ballot at michigan.gov/vote. You can also track your absentee ballot there. It is a wonderful resource. If you don't know where you vote or if you are registered to vote, you can find all of that there.
Susan, what are some things you'd like people to know from your
One
vantage
thing
point?
I'd like clear too is you have until 5 o'clock on the Friday before the election that you can come in if you want to spoil a ballot for whatever reason. Okay, you can come into us, we can take care of that. Once that deadline's hit, that's it. Okay, but if you have not filled out and returned an absentee ballot and you have one in your possession and you change your mind, now you want to vote in person at the poll on election day, you're able to do that. Bring your ballot to the poll and then hand it over, and they will call City Hall or Township Hall, whichever the case may be, and we have to spoil this first ballot. I'll have to spoil ballot number 1. And then we'll say we tell our workers, you wait till you hear us say you can issue a new ballot. So we have spoiled out the first ballot, we can now issue a new ballot. Okay, because this one has to be spoiled. If you don't have it with you in your possession, you're going to have to sign, and again, we can do the same thing, we can spoil it out. You have until 8 o'clock on election day to get a ballot back to us that has been filled out. Like Clerk Brown said, yes, we would love to have them as early as possible because there is a process.
And you would have to do either the clerk's office or a drop box. You can't go to your precinct with your absentee ballot.
If this absentee ballot, if it is voted, you cannot give it to the precinct worker.
Okay.
That has to come to the clerk's office, and then that has to be done there. But if you're spoiling it, if you're handing it over, you can hand it over at the precinct for them to open, them to issue you a new ballot after this one has been spoiled.
All right, Lisa, let me ask you, everyone's going to be looking for results on election night, and because we live in the society of we want it now, we want to know the information. What can we tell people to expect in terms of results on November 8th?
I think with every election, be patient. We want to make sure that every vote that should be counted is counted, and it does take time to do that. Depending upon how many absentee ballots are returned, for some communities, it takes beyond the 13 hours, especially if they're not doing the pre-processing, or even if they are. So know that the time that is taken is to ensure that our results are accurate and secure. For us, for our combined AB counting board, our goal is always to have those results up at 8:05 p.m. For the communities that we tabulate for. We've done that, except for November 2020, they were up at 9:05 p.m. So, as results come in, we push out that information, so people are constantly getting updates on what those results look like.
What about you, Susan?
When they're done.
When they're done, that's when you're going to see them. And
That
don't
will
ask
be-
a minute earlier, says
Well, you
Susan.
know what I tell people? I tell candidates, and I've told reporters
Yeah.
too, text me. My phone is on me. I will respond. If I have something to give you, I will. If not, you won't get anything.
All right, I want to make sure that we've covered all of this. Last thoughts. What have I missed, Lisa?
I think there's a lot of people that are getting confusing messages or hearing things about the ballot proposals, or even about candidates. And I always suggest people to go to Vote 411. It's the League of Women Voters website. They're nonpartisan. And that's where, you can read about candidates and where they stand on issues, or read about ballot proposals. So that's always a great resource that I steer people to.
Okay, last words from you, Susan.
That's the same thing that people, when they're looking for information, I tell them to read the proposals. As a nonpartisan clerk, I don't feel it's my position to give my position. Obviously, I have a personal view. That's outside.
Correct.
Okay, so my personal views do not enter the office. So I tell people to read the proposal, and you make the decision for yourself. When it comes to candidates, sometimes I've gone so far as to check Facebook. Go not check Facebook, but find the local party, and for whichever one, and get the information that way. If you're not getting information, but we will not give out candidate information, because what if I have more information from one and not enough on the other, and then it looks like I might be paying
That you're kind of
favoritism.
leaning one
Yeah,
way or
so
the other. Yeah.
it's better to do zero and then stay out of it and just say, but I will say, recommend. You can go online, you can go check that kind of thing.
And we also have a voter guide here at WDIV. It's clickondetroit.com. We have everything that you need to know for the election. We break down the proposals in all of the races. And again, I would say to people, get a trusted source of information. And social media really isn't it, but make sure that you find something. Lisa, you're nodding and agreeing. Yeah. Make sure that you are finding things that are rooted in fact. It's very important that you're informed when you go to the polls. My thanks to Lisa Brown, the Oakland County Clerk. Lisa, it's great to see you. We know you're going to be busy, so we're going to be checking in.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, and thank you for having this platform to share information with voters. I really appreciate that.
No, thanks so much. And Susan Nash for bringing in everything. And I love seeing the step by step. But people don't usually get to see this. We walk in, we vote, we get the sticker, and we walk out.
And this is in there, and the seals are in there, and they have to match.
Yep.
Because if there was a recount, and let's say on a ballot bag,
you'd have to go back to that machine.
If this number is not on this tag in a sealed, properly sealed bag, it's going to be deemed unrecountable.
All right. Well, we're going to
So
stay
it would
in
have
touch
to
with
stand
you.
as is from Election Day.
And
So
see where everything goes.
Detail.
I like the details.
Document.
I like the process. Susan Nash, the clerk in Livonia. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me on, and thank you for getting this information out to people.
I really appreciate it. Hey, and thanks for watching us right here on Local 4 Plus as we continue our Flashpoint countdown to Election 22. Again, as I said, go to clickondetroit.com and see our election voter guide for you. All the information is there. I know a lot of you have your absentee ballots right now. Make sure you go through and you get that done. And as the clerks say, please turn it in as soon as you can so they can be ready to go on November 8th. That's going to do it for me. Thanks so much for watching. For all of us here at Local 4, I'm Christy McDonald. We'll see you next time. Take care.